Boker Tov, Chag Sameach. Let me try that again. Boker Tov and Chag Sameach. It is wonderful to see all of you this morning of Shavuot, a wonderful holiday that unfortunately sometimes gets overlooked. But we are here today to celebrate receiving the Torah and the wonderful knowledge that it helps us gain. Before we start with song, I would like to read this piece by Alden Solovi, who is a professor at Hebrew Union College, entitled God's Voice. What if God's voice was so near that it rattled your bones as thunder echoes inside your chest? What if God's voice was so near you could feel the wind hit your face as your feet seemed to slip on shaking ground? What if awe and wonder surrounded you so close that your knees buckled as a pillar of fire from heaven descended to earth? What if holiness packed the empty space with light as your lungs fill with the one divine breath together with every other living being? What if God's voice is as near as your willingness to remember the moment we stood together at Sinai, amid the smoke and lightning, hearing the great blast of shofar? What if that moment is now? We begin on page 418 with the words of Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Vani Chastecha avo betecha Eishtacha velecha kodshecha beiratecha Ma tovu, Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu, Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. We continue on page 422, thanking God for the renewal of our spirit each morning. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi Tehorahi. אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה משמרה בקרבי. אלוהי, אלוהי, נשמה, שנתת בי טהורה היא. We turn now to the Nisim B'chol Yom, the prayers for our daily miracles, on page 424. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lesachvi v'na lehavin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten le'ayev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amavir shena me'enai utnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tselem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And it is poignant that we share that blessing today, as today is the day we celebrate receiving the Torah, receiving our heritage, our history. Let us turn now, since we have said the blessing for the study of Torah, we should study some Torah. So let us turn the page to 432 as I chant the Elu Devarim. Elu Devarim she'en lahem shiur, she'adam ochel pirotehem ba'olam hazeh, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא, ואלו הן עיבוד אדבעים וגמילות חסדים, והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, והכנסת אורחים וגמילות חסדים, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והשכמת כלה וביית האמת ועיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. After all of these mitzvot that we list, we say, the Talmud Torah keneged kulam, but the study of Torah encompasses them all. We continue on page 442 with the words of praise of Ashrae from Psalm 144. Ashrae yoshvei veitecha, od yehalelucha sela. Ashrae ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrae ha'am sheronai Elohav. Tila leDavid, aromimcha Elohai hamelech, ve'avracha shimcha leolam va'ed. Bechol yom avarkecha, ve'havalat shimcha leolam va'ed. Gadol Adonai umhulal me'od, ve'ligdulato ein cheker. Dor ledor yishtabach ma'asecha, ugvurotecha yagidu. Adar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha. Ve'zuz noratecha yomeru, ugdulatcha asaprena. Zecherav tucha yabiu, v'tzidkatcha yiranenu. Chanun verachum Adonai, erech alpaim ugdol chased. Tov Adonai lakol, verachamav al kol ma'asav. Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevachucha. Yevod malchutecha yomeru, ugvuratcha yedaberu. Lehodia livnei hadam gevurotav, uchvod hadar malchuto. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chodor vador. Zomech Adonai lechol hanoflim, vezokef lechol hakfufim. Einei chol elecha yisaberu, ve'ata noten lahem et ochlam beito. Poteach et yadecha, umasbiach lechol chai ratzon. Tzadik Adonai bechol derachav, v'chasid bechol ma'asav. Karov Adonai lechol korav, lechol asher yikra'u ve'emet. Retzon yireav ya'aseh, ve'et shavatam yishma ve'oshiyem. Shomer Adonai et kol ohavav, ve'et kol hasharim yashmid. Tehillat Adonai yedaber pi, yevarech kol bosar, shem kodsho leolam va'ed, va'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata ve'ad olam, Hallelujah. Before we continue with our call to worship, we put a hafsakah, a break in between by chanting the Chatzi Kaddish on page 451. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba, ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala, uv'izman kariv imeru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach, le'olam ul'olmei almaya, yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei kudesha barichu, le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, namiran be'alma, ve'imeru, Amen. We rise for the Baruch Hu on page 452. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai. Yai dai 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 yai dai yai dai 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 yai dai yai dai yai dai dai dai. Yai dai 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 yai dai yai dai 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 yai dai yai dai yai dai dai dai. Barechu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai dai. You may be seated. We continue at the top of the page together on page 455. The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes. What welcome then gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning. My Torah, my special human gift, is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeem the sun from darkness. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer Hameorot. We continue with the Ahava Rabbah on page 456. Ahava Rabbah ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chem lagedola v'tzera, Chamalta aleinu. Ba'havur avoteinu ve'imotenu shebatchu v'cha avoteinu ve'imotenu v'tlamdemhu kechayim kein techonenu tlamdenu Amrachem rachem aleinu v'tein belibeinu lehavin ulhaskil lishmoa lilmod ulilamed lishmor v'lasot ulkayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ahava v'har erenenu be'toratecha v'dahabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yachel levavenu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha Lelo nevosh, velo nikalem, velo nikashel, leolam vaed, ki veshem kohodshecha, Agadol v'hanora b'hatachnu Nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komimiyut le'artzeinu ki helpo el Yeshuotata uvahanu vacharta וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול. סלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל מאהבה. We rise for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Adon Shemo. Did I just do Echad Eloheinu? Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. Ani mitzta'er. Sorry. Sometimes we kind of go on autopilot. Let us turn the page, and we will be turning the page in the middle of the Reading of Haftarah. After we finish the first paragraph, turn the page as we continue with the Vayomer Adonai. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha ayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta baham b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha Ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor Daber el bnei Yisrael ve'amarta alehem ve'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei vigdehem ledorotam ve'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet V'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto uzkartem et kol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem asher atem zonim acharehem leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We continue on page 466. Yai bye 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 die die yai die die yai die 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 yai die 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 yai die 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 yai die 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 ya die 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 Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Shir achadasha, shir b'chug geulim, l'shimcha sfatayam. Yachad kulam hodu vehimlichu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed Zur Yisrael, Kuma Bezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu Mecha, Yehuda veYisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai Yahal Yisrael. We turn to page 468 as we rise for the Amidah. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel chasadim tovim vekonei hakol v'zocher chastei avot ve'imahot umevi geula livnei bneihem leman shemo be'ahava melech ozer u'moshia u'magen Baruch atah Adonai magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei hakol atarav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chayim vechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, zomech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato lishenei afar michamocha ba'al givurot umido melach melech memit umechaye umatmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai v'chayei hakol Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam Geshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom Akatuv al yad neviecha V'kara ze el ze ve'amar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch kol haaretz, Kivodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Mahadir, Shimcha bechol haaretz, Baruch Kivod Adonai Mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu vehu Yashmienu, merachamav leinei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Imloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Yitzion, Ledor vador, Alleluia. Ledor vador nagigo lecha, Ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nartish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu, mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue with our own silent prayer. You may be seated when you are finished. Shalom bimromah, hu yahaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yahaseh shalom, Yahaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Since it is a Yom Tov, we do have Hallel today. We turn to page 560 and rise again to sing praises of Hallel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et ha'Hallel. And we begin on page 562. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am loez. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am loez. Hayta Yehuda lekodsho, Yisrael mamshelotav. Hayam ra'av ayanos, Hayarden yisov le'achor. Harim rakedu chelim, Givaot kivnei tzon. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am loez. Page 567. Irchu li Shaharei tzedek, Avovam Odeyah. Pidchu li Shaharei tzedek, Avovam Odeyah. Pidchu li Shaharei tzedek, Avovam Odeyah. Pidchu li Shaharei tzedek, Avovam Odeyah. We remain standing for our Torah service, which will begin on page 494. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kema'asecha. Malechutecha malechut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam v'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Alpayim v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha v'Chata v'Nakeh. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael v'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlu Adonai iti, Uneromema Shemo Yachtav. Lecha Adonai Hagidula Ve'agivura Ve'hatiferet Ve'hanetzach Ve'hahod Ichol Bashamayim U'Va'aretz Ichol Bashamayim U'Va'aretz Lecha Adonai Hamelacha le'amid nahasei lechol lerosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. You may be seated for a second. The other one's over here. So, we have today one of our very special pieces of Torah. We have the Ten Commandments. And if you look at the little handout that I gave you, if you are at all familiar with Torah trope symbols, you might notice this handout. You might notice, it's easier to see on this one, I say, because it's bigger. You might notice some interesting things having to do with the Torah trope symbols. There seem to be multiple on many different words. So what do? Well, we have two different what are called ta'ams. Ta'am in modern Hebrew tends to mean flavor or the taste. So we have two different tastes, two different flavors of this piece of Torah. We have the ta'am ha'elyon, the high, and we have ta'am tachton, the low. And we use the high, the elevated taste for public readings, whereas we use the lower for study or maybe a weekday service if it pops up. But we use the higher one on Shabbat whenever we have Shavuot, and this is at both times that the Ten Commandments occur, both in Devarim and in Exodus. So they have two versions of each. So if ever you're wondering, why is it such that it has two pieces of, it's not out of the ordinary. Some pieces of, some words have two, but not stacked next to each other. Otherwise, that would be impossible. So, today, we shall all rise and stand and declare our acceptance of Torah. For it was not only that God gave us the Torah, but we as Jews accepted the Torah. And we will say the bracha for the reading of the Torah. We recite together, Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach, Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato, Baruch ata Adonai notein haTorah. Amen. וידבר אלוהים את כל הדברים האלה לאמור, אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, אשר הוצאתיך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים, לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים אל פניו, לא תעשה לך פסל וכל המעונה אשר בשמיים ממעל ואשר בארץ מתחת ואשר במים מתחת לארץ. לא תשתחווה להם ולא העבדם, כי אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך על קנה פוקד עוון אבות על בנים על 30 ועל 40 לשוני ואשים oh, I just lost my place. Sorry. ועשה חסד לאלפים לאוהבי לשמרי במצוותי. לא תישא את שם אדוני אלוהיך לשווא, כי לא ינקה אדוני את אשר יישא את שמו לשווא. זכור את יום השבת לקדשו, 6 ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך, ויום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך, לא תעשה כל מלאכה אתה ובנך ובתך עבדיך ואמתך והמתך וגרך אשר בשעירך. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ואת הים ואת כל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי, על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו. כבד את אביך ואת אמך למען וארכון ימיך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נתן לך. לא תרצח, לא תנאף, לא תגנב, לא what was that? סליחה. לא תענה בריח עד שקר, לא תעמוד בית רעך, לא תעמוד אשר רעך ועבדו ועמותו וסורו וחמורו לכל אשר לרעך. And we recite together the blessing after the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chaye olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. You may be seated. We now turn our thoughts to those who cannot be with us here today because they are either recovering from an illness or they're just not feeling well. And so we want to, even though they're not here with us, we feel them here in spirit, and we want to send them a special blessing of Misha Berach on page 371. I know that there's one on that one. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. If there's anybody that you are thinking about right now, please give light to their name.
Robert Castell. Jim Vernon.
Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We now invite our Hagbah, Eric Adams. I was wondering who was going to do it today. Eric Adams to come and raise the Torah for us. I will point out as he turns it around where exactly we read today. And we rise. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai. So, you may be... Why did I turn myself off? You may be seated. I now invite Helene to come up and to bless give us blessing for the reading of Haftarah, which can be found on page...
The blessing is on 512.
512 for the blessing.
And the Haftarah portion is on 1672.
1672.
1673.
73.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'inviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Okay, this is from the book of Isaiah, and the connection to the holiday of Shavuot is that it celebrates God's choice of Israel to receive the Torah at Sinai. And the prophecy chosen for this day expands on this election. God's people will teach the true way to the nations. This is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall teach the true way to the nations. He shall not cry out or shout aloud, or make his voice heard in the streets. He shall not break even a bruised reed, or snuff out even a dim wick. He shall bring forth the true way. He shall not grow dim or be bruised, till he has established the true way on earth, and the coastlands shall await his teaching. Thus said God the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what it brings forth, who gave breath to the people upon it, and life to those who walk thereon. I, the Lord, in my grace, have summoned you, and I have grasped you by the hand. I created you and appointed you a covenant people, a light of nations, opening eyes deprived of light, rescuing prisoners from confinement, from the dungeons, those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not yield my glory to another, nor my renown to idols. See, the things once predicted have come, and now I foretell new things, announced to you ere they sprout up. Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise from the ends of the earth. You who sail the sea, and you creatures in it, you coastlands and their inhabitants. Let the desert and its towns cry aloud, the villages where Kedar dwells. Let Selah's inhabitants shout, call out from the peaks of the mountains. Let them do honor to the Lord and tell his glory in the coastlands. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol ha'olamim, tzaddik b'chol hadarot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'yoseh, ha'medaber u'makayem, she'kol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'neviim ve'al yom Chag Shavuot hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'sason ulsimcha l'chavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevrachim otach yitbarach shimcha b'ficho chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Amen.
Thank you, my friend Helene. Before we return the Torah to the Ark, we're going to join together, and we are on page 515. Torah Adonai Timimah, and together we read in the middle of the page. God's Torah is perfect, reviving the soul. God's teaching is sure, making wise the simple. God's precepts are right, delighting the mind. God's mitzvot are clear, giving light to the eyes. God's word is pure, enduring forever. God's judgments are true and altogether just. When Torah entered the world, freedom entered it. The whole Torah exists only to establish peace. Its highest teaching is love and kindness. What is hateful to you, Do not do to any person. This is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Go and learn it. Those who study Torah are the true guardians of civilization, honoring one another, doing acts of kindness, and making peace. These are our highest duties, but the study of Torah is equal to them all because it leads to them all. Let us learn in order to teach. Let us learn in order to do. And just one additional thing before we place the Torah scrolls back in the ark. As we all remember, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, as Jerusalem, after the Six-Day War, became available to our ancestors and to our families and friends in Israel. Let's look at prayers for our community in Israel in the prayer book, and let's turn to page 517, and we'll read together on Avinu Shebashamayim in the English. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it in the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. May it be God's will.
We now turn back to page 514 as we return the Torah to the ark. We will remain standing for the Aleinu after. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Alleluia, alleluia. Etz chaim hi lemachazikim ba v'tom heha meushar deracheha darcheoam echol netivotecha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh chadesh yameinu chadesh yameinu yekedem. Page 586 at the top. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula leotzer breshit, shehu notes hamayim ve'oser haaretz, umoshav yekaro bashamayim mima'al, ushchinatu zo bekoved meromim, Hu Eloheinu ein od, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, Lemelech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. You may be seated. Our thoughts now turn to those who were lights within our lives, whose lights of memorial now surround us, all lit, providing their light once again. We turn to page 574 for our Yizkor service. Adonai, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath, our days are as a passing shadow. We come and go like grass which in the morning shoots up renewed and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood where we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. Adonai, you redeem the soul of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. We now turn the page as I sing the words of Adonai Ro'i, a psalm of David. We ask for God's peace. Adonai Ro'i lo exad, Bino sheyarbetzeni, al me menuchot, inahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'magelei tzedek, yancheni b'magelei tzedek, leman shemo. Gam ki elech megetz al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai, shulchan neged zorerai, dishanta vashemen roshi kosiri vahaya. Aktov v'chesed yirdefuni, o yamecha Veshavti befeit Adonai lehorech yamin. Adonai roi lo hetzar. Adonai roi lo hechsar. Adonai is my shepherd, I lack nothing. God makes me lie down in green pastures. God leads me to water in places of repose. God renews my life. God guides me in right paths as befits God's name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my drink is abundant. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai for many long years. Let us read together at the bottom of page 577. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. We turn to page 579 as we read at the bottom of the page. Each person has a name. We each have a name given by God and given by our father and mother. We each have a name given by our stature and smile and given by our attire. We each have a name given by the hills and given by the walls. We each have a name given by the stars and given by our friends. We each have a name given by our sins and given by our yearnings. We each have a name given by our enemies and given by love. We each have a name given by celebration and given by our work. We each have a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. We each have a name given by the sea and given by our death. We now take this moment for silent Yizkor in any way that you need. Please take that time, and we will continue when we are all ready. Though their light is gone from this world, it is never gone from our heart. We turn now to page 582 as we rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim Shochen V'Amromim Hametzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im kedoshim uteorim kezoar harakia masirim lenishmot yakirenu shalchu leolamim bal harachamim yastirei meseter kenafav leolamim v'yitzror b'yitzror lechaim et nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam v'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen. After this final reading, we will be ending our service. We ask you to leave the room in silence to allow people to focus on the memories of their loved ones. We read together on page 583. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember them. Zikronam livracha. Chag Sameach.